Want more videos? Kindly like and subscribe. While searching for a gaming console online, I end up bumping into a Neckbeard who is selling one. The rest is history. Boy, do I have a story for all of you. This all took place since I'd say the beginning of March, right before the pandemic got really extreme. We were still wearing the masks, but we were all quarantined at home. Me, being an adult who couldn't do really anything, was bored off of my mind. So, I make a post on Facebook basically asking if any of my friends were selling an Xbox One. I wanted to occupy my time during my time staying indoors, and I didn't really have anything to do other than draw or play my PS2, which didn't have as many games and it just got a bit stale for a while. About 3 days or so pass, and I receive a text message from one of my friends on FB who had found a listing for an Xbox One on the marketplace, right in town. Normally I never use marketplace because I can't stand it and how sketchy it is to me, but I didn't have a lot of money on me and this deal seemed actually pretty good and affordable. So, I hit the guy up and asked when I could send the money and pick up the console. The dude seemed pretty normal really, except for his lack of any photos, and even disguising his full name on FB to something edgy with a PFP of a satanic symbol on it. Go figure. I just wanted the console though, and I didn't mind picking it up or anything. So a few days pass and this guy seems to want to talk to me more casually. He tells me, "TBH, I wanna be friends too. I don't just want to be a guy who sells you an Xbox." Well, I'm not a very social person at all, but I thought, okay sure, whatever then. Whatever works. He added me as a friend and that was pretty much that during that time. So we set up a plan and time to pick up the console and exchange the money. I get up to his house to pick it up, money in hand and all. Lo and behold, this guy walks out wearing nothing but demon wear and has a shirt that said "Hail Satan MOTHERF #CKER. So that was a thing. Even his mask had all of the same too when he came out to hand me the console in its box. He apologized for me waiting a bit longer than expected to be able to give it to me, so he gifted me with his old headset he wasn't using anymore. I didn't think anything of it and thanked him for it, because it was still pretty nice of him to do. So time passed, and yes, the Xbox came in pretty flawed. One of the cords shocked me and the controller was broken, but those were replaceable. It only started getting kind of strange how this guy, who had now told me that he was 36 years old, I'm 22, it's not illegal or anything, but it's just strange how a 36-year-old would be acting like what's about to come, would begin to slowly start converting our conversations to flat out talking about how the most outlandish nonsense is real. At one point he had claimed to me that he saw a real video of Godzilla roaming the earth in China and he said it was amazing. He believed the Buruit explosions were faked, how he used to work for Anonymous, how he was such a badass he'd knock people out cold, the typical Neckbeard gibberish they'd normally chat around to get laid. I just kinda bobble-headed everything he said and let it go. Let the guy be happy. I chatted with him in short sentences, agreeing or sometimes disagreeing and all that, and months followed from there. This guy, slowly but surely, because to send me some really weird crap. He'd brag about it and talk about how he bonded so well with his last ex, and how they both swore they spoke to aliens in their dreams. At that point was when his conversations would turn more and more sexual in nature, and my God. This guy who never stopped talking. Over me. He would never let me start nor continue a conversation. Never. So I quit talking altogether. He'd tell me he had dreams of me last night, how we kissed and cuddled and had intercourse in the clouds or something. He'd constantly ask me if I took CBD that night, because he knew I had severe anxiety and his weird discussions would make me a bit anxious and weirded out. I was also a lot more talk-why on CBD and he knew that as well, and he wanted me to say whatever I could to validate his constant requests as to, "Do you like me?" Over and over again, and it truly was constant. It never freaking stopped. I no joke friend zoned this guy 4 different times in the span of 3 months, and it was almost as if he had pretended I never said a word. Around this same exact time, I was having a fallout with a friend. This is something that was completely separate from the situation with the Neckbeard, but it did end up being a causing factor to some problems. I began, stupidly, venting to the guy about some of my issues regarding it and my insecurities. Not all of them, and not all the time either. I didn't want to vent much about my problems to him, but there was a point in time I got so worked up and had nobody to talk to that I didn't really care anymore. I'd just say what was on my mind. I shared some pretty personal things when I was upset, and they were things that hurt me pretty badly back then. I have CPTSD from childhood trauma, thinking that I had an outlet at least somewhere. About a last week into our final conversation, this freaking guy began finally sending me lecture upon lecture about how I'm a complete loser until I choose to win. And about how, if you're depressed, go outside and enjoy life and stop crying. I learned to stop venting to him after that. It was a horrible idea in the first place, but I had no other outlet. I stopped communicating with him completely. The messages didn't stop though. He'd send me paragraph upon paragraph as to how precious I was to him. He was putting romantic posts onto my FB timeline and trying so hard to get a response out of me. He would ask countless times for my address for a multitude of reasons. When I told him the Xbox started acting up, he'd desperately ask for my address so he could fix it. Or he wanted to just hang out, because we never did. Or he wanted to play the Ouija board with me, etc. And I could tell he'd get frustrated or act offended if I denied him from visiting. He'd act like, "Oh, so you don't trust me then?" That kinda smile. The guilt tripping was very prevalent. Finally, just a few nights ago, I saw he made a random post indirectly ranting about me. Alright, so I'm going to be unfriending all of the losers on my friends list to clean it up. His paragraph went into detail about every single thing he ever griped about me in detail without mentioning my name. He would complain that he had no time to deal with stupid crybabies who do nothing but whine about them being depressed or not having a date. Pretty ironic coming from him. His paragraph also talked about my issues in particular and basically just outright shitting on them, while saying I'm a complete loser for being upset with my trauma. I saw the post he made, and I was finally done. I unfriended and blocked him and removed him from my life. At least that's what I tried to do. After I blocked him, I began receiving messages from him on my other social medias insulting me and berating me, telling me that I just use and abuse people and that I'm a fat bitch. I blocked him on those accounts as well, and I hope that crazy mofo doesn't try to contact me again. I genuinely hate being female. I'm sorry, but I just do. This kind of stuff never goes away no matter what you do. I just want to enjoy my life being single, that's really it. TLDR. I bought an Xbox from an edgelord in town nearby me. He started asking to be friends afterwards, and I was okay with that. Until he started telling me Godzilla is real, aliens are coming in 2022, and that he can talk to aliens in his sleep. He began flirting with me relentlessly, and when I denied his advances 4 times, he got angry and began attacking me on Facebook. After I blocked him, he went onto my other social media accounts to attack me there instead.
Want more videos? Kindly like and subscribe. That time I found out my Neckbeard best friend of 8 years was the reason I've never been able to stay in a relationship for more than 5 months now. The main antagonist of this story doesn't often shower or wash his hair, which is very off-putting, especially when you've spent the amount of time I have with him. He isn't really your average neckbeard, he just has the tendencies of them. He tall and pretty muscular, has long black hair that comes down to his shoulders and is often made fun of because he wears colored contacts and dyes his hair. But enough of that, onto the story. So, when I was in school, I was pulled into this friend group. In this group was the main antagonist of this story, let's call him Drac, because he thinks he's a vampire, Red, a red-headed powerhouse of a human being, Jay, who is genuinely one of the nicest human beings that I know, and myself. We were pretty close in school and only had a few fights as a group. Eventually Red started dating a girl who was very toxic and she made him kick me out of the friend group. Now Drac had left the group because of the same girl, and after that, we became super close. We started hanging out more and found that we had a lot of the same interest. He found out a lot about my trauma and I found out a lot about his. As we got older, I started dating this girl who went to a school very close to mine. Let's call her Lucy. I started dating her around the end of the school year. And we both shared a lot of the same hobbies. We both loved musicals, acting, singing, and we both had a lot of experience with the same play production company. Now, at the beginning of that summer, I had spent a lot of time with Drac and had figured that I could trust him with knowing about our relationship. I don't like making my relationships public, and he seemed super happy for me. But, during this time, my dad had walked out on my mom and I that hit me like a truck, and Drac was the only person I could go to at the time. He was there for me and did all he could to make me feel better. A week after that incident, I started worrying at a summer camp for 2 weeks. And I told Lucy I wouldn't be able to talk to her for those 2 weeks because there's no service there, and she understood. But by the time I had come back from camp, I had gotten every message from her and all of them were talking about how she couldn't trust me and that she didn't want to date anymore. I had immediately told Drac this and he acted like he knew this was going to happen. He said stuff like, "Yeah man, I knew she was going to dump you. And, I should have warned you." Which turns out, he did know she was going to dump me because he told her to. Later that year, Drac began doing some very toxic thing like dating girls just so he could get nudes from them and making up excuses to why he was a prick to everyone, including me and his siblings. He moved out of my town and into a town nearby, where his shenanigans continued. Anyways, flash forward to this past summer. Drac has a girlfriend we'll call Renee. He's very happy with her and seems like he's actually making his life better. I started getting back in touch with Lucy and we end up making amends and get back together. Jay is back in my life and we get really close again. At this point, Lucy and I have been dating again for 5 months and we're doing great. Then suddenly Lucy calls me and breaks up with me, and verbatim says, "I know what you've been doing op. Drac told me you haven't changed since last time and I should have believed him. I'm done. Goodbye." So, I called Drac and asked, "Hey man, what the fick did you tell Lucy?" And through his teeth, he says, "I have no idea what you're talking about bro." I still can't believe that I believed him. To this day I cringe at myself. Just writing this, I'm shaking in anger and frustration at the fact that he could tell me these things and I just trusted him. Not to mention that through the years of our friendship, he has lied and scolded me for trying to stop him from hurting these girls that I was friends with by saying, "Hey man, just let me live my life." Anyways, it's now my junior year of college and I made a new friend. Let's call him Farm Kid. He's a farm kid and is still my best friend to this day. Farm Kid used to have a problem with Drac, but I pushed his bad opinions of him away because I knew Drac. He wasn't like that at all. He was a good friend. At least that's what I thought. I had started talking to this girl, short, sweet, honest, and genuinely cares about me. Not to mention she has the nicest smile and is very attractive. Unfortunately Drac also though that too. Well, call her Bean. Bean and I were on the phone one night while Drac and Farm Kid were over. We were all playing video games, but Farm Kid and I had a double date planned for the next day with Bean and Farm Kid's girlfriend at the time. Now, Bean and I weren't dating at the time, but we agreed on the fact that we should. We just need to get closer before we could make it official. Drac said he couldn't see this relationship going anywhere, but I told him I had high hopes for it. The next day, Farm Kid and I went on out double date and it went great. Bean and I had a great time and we started dating a few days later. Fast forward, again, to about 4 months ago. Bean and I have been dating for about 8 months and we're doing pretty well. The events of 2020 hit and I haven't really been able to see her often, but we've been trying very hard. Drac DM'd Bean and starting flirting, hitting on her, and she made it clear that she was still in a relationship with me and wanted it to stay that way, and that if his intentions were to end that, then he could stop texting her. He immediately agreed that they should stay friends and they get strangely close. Now this past week, Drac had texted me asking if I could drive him up to one of our friends' houses. I agreed, but I couldn't bring him home until after my hospital visit I had scheduled that day. At this point, Bean and I have been dating for about a year and Drac and her are very close. I also haven't talked to Bean in a week or so because of some health problems I've been having. When it comes to things that stress me out, I like to isolate myself so I don't make people anxious. It's a problem I've been trying to work on for a while now. I end up bringing Drac to our friend's house and they ask me to hang out with them. I agree, but only after my visit to the hospital, and things went great. I hung out with a few friends I haven't seen in a while and went home and went to bed. Now, this past weekend Bean calls me while Farm Kid and I are hanging out saying that I need to talk to her about why I haven't been talking to her. I told her about the problems I've been having and she says, "Drac told me that you're avoiding me. He said you were hanging out with him Tuesday and told him you didn't want to talk to me." At this point I was fed up and told her I knew what was going on and explained all of my past relationships and how Drac always had a connection with them breaking up with me. She immediately told me about some of the weird and manipulative crap he's been doing. It turns out he's been trying to get Bean to break up with me. He also apparently broke up with Renee and has been using that as an excuse to be creepy toward Bean. So yesterday I went to his house and confronted him. Both of his younger siblings were listening but didn't care. I told him how I knew about everything he's been doing and how I was tired of it. I asked him to explain it all to me. This son of AB*TCH had the audacity to say, "I don't recall any of this." So I told him to stay the frick out of my life, or else there will be a problem. Now Drac, if you're reading this, frick you, and I wish you could have been honest for your sake. As much as I wish all of this was a joke or a sick lie that all of my past relationships have told me, I know it's not. I hope you can learn to respect yourself enough to stop. I hope you guys enjoyed. Want more videos? Kindly like and subscribe.